Hey, what is going on, guys? And welcome back to the full-time travel planning series. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about apps you need while traveling. Okay, so let's face it, apps are super important. We have our phones glued to us at every given second of every day, or at least I do, and probably a fair portion of the world population does. And with that, we depend on our phone for so many things, whether it's a calculator, whether it's banking, whether it's reading, whether it's social media, whether it is whatever you like to do on your phone. And we find ourselves in need of our apps all the time. And so, of course, you could probably guess that doesn't change when you're traveling the world. Now, the reason why I wanted to make this video, there are probably only a handful of apps in here that you may not have thought about in the past, and you may have thought about them depending on how experienced of a traveler you are. But what I wanted to share with you is some of the apps that I use and why I use them. Okay, so the first thing I want to say to you guys in this video is get all the apps downloaded right away. Get them on your phone, have that whole download process all set. Because you never know where in the world you're going to be when you don't have Wi-Fi or you have really slow Wi-Fi and it takes forever to download an app. Maybe this app doesn't need to be connected to the internet, so the great news is, like Google Translate, if you download the language, you can already have the app on your phone, and if you find yourself with no cell signal, open up Google Translate without signal and be able to go ahead and type in whatever word or phrase you need to share with the local. So I would imagine some of these apps I'm going to discuss with you are a bit of a review. You probably have some of them on your phone depending on who you are, but I just want to go through my whole list of what are the apps that I use most commonly while I'm traveling, and maybe there's going to be a few of you who aren't using that app but might see that as something you want to use down the road. So transportation and accommodation. So what I always do is I look up all of the ride-sharing services around the world to whatever country I'm going to, and by ride-sharing I mean in some countries like the US we use Lyft and Uber most commonly, and then also you have your taxis and things like that, but most commonly most people say, hey, let's call an Uber, let's call a Lyft. Now it's not like that in many countries. For example, in Southeast Asia, in many of the countries they use Grab. In South America, they use Cabify, and the list goes on. In New Zealand and Australia, they use Ola. So there's a bunch of different ride-sharing services that have blown up, which are all very similar to Uber and Lyft, which you might be the most familiar with here in the United States. So I'm not going to talk about each ride-sharing app in this video, but I will say you can find all of that on my website under the discounts page, where it'll share with you various ride-sharing apps as well as discount codes to save you some money on your first couple rides. So talked about the ride-sharing part of transportation. Now if I were you, I would go ahead and download all of the airline apps. If you know you're going to Southeast Asia, look up what some of the most common airlines are in that area and download all the apps. There are some deep discount airlines which will charge you if you have to print out your boarding pass or if you have to go to the check-in counter and print off your boarding pass. A lot of the times they can reward you for having the boarding pass on your phone. So I would recommend just getting all those apps on your phone, and for many reasons other than just having your boarding pass, sometimes it pays to be the first to check in because you get seat selection or priority seat selection, and so all of those different reasons are a great reason for you to go ahead and download the most common airline apps that you think you'll be taking. The next would be make sure to download all of the accommodation apps. You can download Airbnb. Hopefully you're familiar with Airbnb by now. If not, I have a link in the description you can check out, and that is basically going to save you up to $55 on your first booking, which Airbnb is what I use almost all the time except when I'm trying to travel and meet people, which then I'm going to go to hostels. I like to travel very cheap, and Airbnb gives me a very much at-home experience, and then the hostel experience gives me that discount experience. So obviously I'll have like Hostel World on here because I book a lot of hostels. I'll have Booking.com. I have all of the big hotel chains like Marriott, Hilton. I don't really stay in those too much now, but I do have points left over from when I was working in the corporate world. So if I were you, I would download all those apps. It's better to have them than not if you have the storage space on your phone. So the next one here is to download the app Bounce. And what Bounce is Bounce is short-term luggage storage. So let's say you arrive to New York City, for example, your hotel or hostel's on the other side of the city, you want to go out with some friends, you can go ahead, open up the Bounce app, and then you can go and store your bag in the closest Bounce location. So that one is a game changer for the travel industry. Bounce is currently only in the United States at the time of recording this in March, but they're expanding to Europe in the next few months here. My brother actually owns this company, so I would highly recommend checking it out. He's doing a great job scaling it, and it's really changing the travel industry. And I'm not just saying this because it's my brother. It's a fantastic idea, and Bounce is huge. So the next ones are going to be some that hopefully you have, and if not, I would recommend to get them. They're what I would identify as utilities. So I would download a Convert app. I can share with you the one that I'm using. It's super helpful, whether it's converting temperature, whether it's converting currency, whatever it might be. I love my conversion app. I use it all the time because I'm constantly going into a new country with different currencies. And honestly, if I had to remember all the currencies, I would probably be spending too much money because I wouldn't remember. So the currency app is your best friend. Get a translator app. I'm a big fan of Google Translate. I don't know, I haven't tried any other translate apps, but I love Google because I can go on Google's app and I can download the Spanish language per se. So that way, if I don't have cell signal, like I was talking about earlier in this video, I don't need it because I already have the language downloaded into my app. So if you know where you're already planning to travel to, I would recommend download Google Translate, download all the languages for all the countries you're going to, so you have that in case you ever didn't have cell phone service. The next ones, you probably already have these, but download all your banking apps. I will tell you, it has come in handy so many times when I've totally forgot to put a travel notice when I arrive to a new country, and all of a sudden my banking cards do not work. None of them, credit cards, debit cards, and I'm like, geez, I am screwed right now. But then I'm like, nope, pop open my phone, add in my travel notification, boom, I am good to go. So have those banking apps. Hopefully you already have them and this is just a review, but maybe that'll help you. Now you know in a lot of these apps you can actually put in your travel notices. So the next one I would say to download if you don't already have it is Skype. Wow, Skype. No one's talked about that in so many years. Or maybe you use Skype for business, so maybe use it all the time. But for me personally, I don't usually use Skype too often. I have FaceTime, I have those other video apps like, Snapchat, connecting with people, Instagram, the whole deal, right? So with the Skype app specifically though, I pay I think like $3 or $4 per month, where I have access to call back to the United States whenever I have connection to Wi-Fi or I use my data, and that way I don't incur any calling charges when I use my Google Fi plan. The next one I like to use to track my health is the Pacer app. A good buddy of mine turned it on to me earlier this year, and the reason why I like Pacer so much is because it's a little bit better than the health app in my opinion. It seems to be slightly more accurate, as well as it counts calories. And I don't know, for me personally, when I climb a mountain, it's fun to say, wow, I just burned 2,000 calories, because it really motivates me to want to climb a mountain again. So if you're doing any hiking, I would recommend downloading the All Trails app. I was turned on to this one in New Zealand and it's awesome. It basically tracks your time that you do a hike and back, as well as it tells you the difficulty of the hike, if it's going to be really tough, challenging, moderate, easy, and you can also find some photos of the hike and reviews from other travelers. So I love All Trails. Download that. Even if you're not a hiker, you might be once you start traveling. I turned into a hiker after New Zealand. Okay, so these next ones, I'm sure you already have them, but I just want to challenge you to say, what are you going to do when you're on those long haul flights? What are you going to do when you're on those overnight bus rides? What are you going to do when you're just laying in bed because you're still jet lagged and you can't fall asleep? Well, if you don't have them on your phone yet, I would download your favorite podcast apps. I just have the general podcast app on my iPhone, the one that comes with it, and I can get all the podcasts I want. Also, I would recommend downloading Kindle or a books app, whatever type you like to do. Maybe download some books now, even though you're not going to read them now. You're going to be happy if you don't have service and you find yourself sitting on the plane not able to sleep and like, oh yeah, I have this book I can start on, or this audiobook that I can start on. You're going to be very happy you already have it downloaded. Last but not least, I would mention that obviously you're going to want some sort of music streaming app, or you want to download music onto your phone. That should be pretty obvious. I won't talk about that too much. But then also make sure you think about movie streaming. So one thing that I had to find out the hard way is in many countries around the world, you can't actually watch most shows or movies on Netflix and Amazon Prime Video. Now, I don't know when that will change or what the deal is, but it's gotten me pretty frustrated. Hey guys, sorry, switched cameras, the memory card just got full here. But what I was saying here is, in many countries, you're not going to be able to access Netflix and Prime Video. There's a list of videos or shows that you can still watch in those countries, but it's very, very limited. So at one point I reached out to Amazon and said, hey, is there any way I'm ever going to be able to watch any of these series outside of the country? And the customer service representative said, hey, go ahead and just download them while you're still in the United States to your phone, and then you'll be able to access those when you're in any country. So it's a little bit annoying because you have to store that many shows and movies, and if you're going to be gone for a year, obviously I don't know if your phone's going to have the capacity to hold that many, and you're not going to be able to download new series. But at least in the short term, you can have some of them downloaded, and that might make you think about it. Hey, it might not make sense to hold on to my Netflix or Amazon Prime subscription if I'm going to be gone this whole time, and I won't even be able to enjoy some of the benefits they have. It's something that I didn't realize until I'm abroad and I honestly always forget it until I go abroad because I'm like, geez, now's a perfect time to watch a show. Then I can't. So think about that and download your series and movies accordingly. So last but not least, you probably already have these also, but download some of the news apps. And if you don't have any world news apps, definitely download them and put the notifications on. There's been so many times that I've been so happy that I downloaded the world news apps because it's showed me something that I probably wouldn't have come across because I was busy doing whatever my normal day-to-day traveling. And because I had that notification pop up, I was able to avoid whatever the risk or danger was, or a place I just simply didn't want to go to at the moment because of a natural disaster. So what I would tell you is have those downloaded, turn your notifications on. It's always good to be informed about what's going on in the world when you're traveling because you never know how quickly things can change in an instance. I think we can all relate to the coronavirus pandemic, how that changed everything so quickly. And the biggest thing that everyone was going to always was news because countries were getting shut down left and right. So have that information always ready for you guys. And so guys, just one more app that I would recommend for you guys is maps.me and Google Maps. Just one thing I would mention first of all about Google Maps is if you want to be able to have availability to those maps, if you don't have cell signal, then you're going to need to go ahead and download that specific area. So if you download that area, then you'll still be able to use Google Maps. But if you hadn't already downloaded those maps and you don't have service, it probably won't work. And also maps.me, it's a very popular app that people use for offline maps as well. So I would just download both of them, have them there in case, especially if you have the space on your phone. I mean, why not? You'll be prepared. And so guys, that pretty much wraps up this video here for apps you should have while traveling and other travel tips related to that, like obviously getting your podcasts and your books and your movies and everything, just getting them downloaded and having them on your device ready to go. I always recommend to be prepared because you never know what's going to happen. And so guys, in the next episode, in episode 13, we're going to be talking all about what you should do once you get close to the moving time. So there's a few key topics I want to touch on, and then a big one I want to touch on is whether you should store or sell your stuff. So one thing I would challenge you to think about, and we'll talk in detail about in the next episode, is what makes sense for you. Do you value the stuff that you're storing and holding on to, or would you rather sell it? Maybe find a friend or family member you could bring a couple boxes to. But we'll talk way more about that, guys, in the next episode. I'm really excited to talk about that as well as some of the other tips. And thanks so much for watching. If you haven't yet already, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any more episodes like this. We have a lot more coming. And if you like this video, guys, give it a thumbs up, and we'll see you in the next video.